All right, so we have yet another one of these interesting contracts that was handed out. This one was yesterday. I'm recording my video of it today. Brandon Cooks, still only 29-year-old Brandon Cooks. I think people think he's a lot older than he actually is. Again, not that 29 is young in wide receiver years, but still, coming off of a season where PFF had him ranked as the 36th best wide receiver in football, so certainly not like he's coming off a bad year or anything, gets traded for just a 5th and 6th round pick. And on top of it, you're actually getting a scenario where Houston is retaining a chunk of his salary, where the Dallas Cowboys are only paying him $12 million for this year. Now, it's a 1-year deal, you would assume. Now, he is on contract for another year, and that's kind of maybe where things get a little bit interesting. His deal would be $16.5 million in 2024, but you can get out of it with, I believe, no dead cap at all, is what it says here. So you could get out of it for, no dead cap. Feels like it might be a 1-year rental, and hey, if he plays well enough to earn a $16.5 million contract in 2024, then you feel pretty good about it. So, listen, on one hand, trading for a veteran player who is going to be 30 this season for, paying him $12 million a year, maybe you wonder if there's better options out there, and you can kind of see why it's a later, maybe you're not getting the most draft capital, but for just a 5th and 6th round pick, it feels like you're barely giving up any draft capital, and I think that's the surprise. If you give up a 2nd round pick for Brandon Cooks, I think fans would still be excited about it, and I think you could make the argument that would probably be much more fair value here, given the situation of Brandon Cooks being someone who is still a very effective player for Houston and has been a very effective player for Houston. Again, receivers can fall off a cliff at any given moment, so you never know, but there's really no reason to believe that Cooks would fall off. I think the biggest thing going against him right now is just that he got traded, and sometimes when you get traded, you fall off, but that's not a really fair way to make the argument, because you're the one trying to trade for someone. The Dallas Cowboys get Brandon Cooks here, and it's I think a good example of, hey, maybe for Houston, they could have tried to get rid of Brandon Cooks earlier. Now, one thing that I'm speculating on, I don't know anything about this, but I know that Brandon Cooks did not want to get traded. That was a thing a bit ago where people said, okay, well, Brandon Cooks probably would love to be traded from Houston, and it seemed like he actually liked playing there. I wonder if he just likes being in the area, likes being in Texas, so maybe going to Dallas, not that far of a move, and maybe it makes it easier for him to do that. Total speculation, but maybe he wanted to play for the Cowboys and that got the compensation down. But hey, for Dallas, getting Gilmore and Brandon Cooks for next to no draft capital given up, you're paying them not a ton of money. I think this has completely shifted how I view the Dallas Cowboys. I was viewing them heading into this offseason as being in a really tough spot, and I'm wondering how they're going to be able to acquire that much more talent, because kind of the positions that they really needed, I thought weapons, the big one, wide receivers, there wasn't a ton of great wide receiver free agents. Well, for Brandon Cooks, I mean, this is kind of what the top-of-the-line free agents out there are getting money-wise anyways, but he's been a significantly better player, has a history of success with several different teams now. This is now I believe this is the 3rd time or 4th time. I believe it's the 4th time, actually, he's been traded. Interestingly enough, it's the 4th. He played for plenty of different teams, and it's just a very fascinating move, but one I'm certainly a fan of from the Dallas Cowboys perspective. From the Houston Texans perspective, I actually just don't like it at all. I would rather them not make the trade. Usually I say, hey, rebuilding team, even if it's not a ton of assets, get what you can for, a guy who is definitely a depreciating asset at this point in his career. But you're probably going to draft a quarterback, number 2 overall, right? I mean, I can't imagine they're not unless they trade down. I certainly can't imagine them drafting Jalen Carter, number 2 overall. I assume they're going after a quarterback. And the number one predictor of future success in the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks is how good of a situation did you get drafted into. It just is. That's seemingly the one thing that we can point to and say that's a predictor is getting them in a situation where they can get up to speed quickly, because it is so hard to make that transition from, college quarterback to NFL quarterback, that even if it's a Bryce Young, who many feel can make that transition easily, you want to make things easier on that young quarterback. And to me, it would totally be worth a 5th and 6th round pick that you're not acquiring to just keep a better receiver in the building and make that transition a little easier and help develop that player a little bit more. As of right now, I mean, your wide receiving core is looking a little bit rough. Like, I don't know if John Mechie is going to end up playing at any point. He would be a nice, addition, because I liked him a lot in college. You also have, Nico Collins, who I thought was solid last year in his 400-plus snaps that he had. But that's your receiving core. Amari Rodgers is there. You have Robert Woods. That's an interesting move. I like him as a guy, but I don't know if he's the guy necessarily. So if you're going after a young quarterback, I don't know, Brevin Jordan, is he your number one option here? I think, I would probably think that Robert Woods or Nico Collins would be the number one option. I guess really Dameon Pierce is the number one option. He's, that is definitely a plus, having a guy like Dameon Pierce who can, take some of the stress off of your young quarterback. But I really do feel like Brandon Cooks is someone who, is he a number one receiver in this league anymore? I don't know. I really don't know. But is he someone who can play? Yeah, he's someone who can play. And I think that's where it's just a little bit weird for the Texans. Because again, listen, if this was a cornerback who was just as good, I'd say, you know what, fine. You'd like to get more value, but fine. But in this scenario where your whole thing for the next several years is going to be built around whichever quarterback you get, whether it be CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, maybe Anthony Richardson, I don't know, but probably one of those two. The whole thing for the next 3 years or so is going to be building around that guy. And in a weak wide receiver free agency period, trading away some of your best wide receiver, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, especially when you're getting such little value. Again, if you got a second round pick for it, okay, I get it. If this is a position that, isn't someone that's going to help out your quarterback, okay, I get it. But the fact that it's, both someone who would help out your young quarterback and you're not getting much value for it, don't love it there. Again, maybe he demanded a trade behind the scenes and said, hey, I'd really like to be traded. And they wanted to do right for a player who, had some nice years for him. Okay. But given what I know now, which is I don't know that that's the case. All I know is the trade itself. What I know, it's just not the move that I personally would have made. And I think it's a big win for the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, that's kind of how I view this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts? Do you like Brandon Cooks to the Cowboys? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.